Minutes for questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it very much. Appreciate you being here with us today. So I've heard a lot of comments from my colleagues on both sides of the aisle about concerns about doing research with different, and I don't know what the right word is, but when you change the formula a little bit on fentanyl, and they're concerned about, you know, we don't want this stuff on the street, but what about research, because it may be helpful. The drug might, if you change it a little bit, it might actually have some positive impacts. And you responded that you have 600 folks working on THC and cannabidiol. My concern is, and I think probably where this concern has come from other folks is that this has been a long-standing complaint with the DEA on substances that are either unscheduled or Schedule 1, such as marijuana. You mentioned THC and cannabidiol. You know, Virginia had the first medical marijuana law in the United States, passed in 1979 by former Congressman Rick Boucher when he was in the state Senate and member of the House of Delegates, the late Chip Woodrum. And from 1979 to 1998, there wasn't a whole lot going on, because in 1998, somebody tried to take that law off the books. That's when I got involved in this issue. And what we heard at that time in Virginia was, yeah, they say they're doing research at the DEA, but we have a hard time getting approval. And I note that with some interest that in our next panel we have a witness, Dr. Beardsley, who in his testimony, his written testimony, tells us that in one instance it took over 4 months to get cannabidiol added to my Schedule 1 registration, and this drug has no abuse potential and no street value, which I think is pretty much accurate. So I want to work with you to get the language right. I don't want this stuff on the street, but I also want to make sure that we don't have a repeat of the past, and once it gets, you know, put into a Schedule 1 or a Schedule A, as the CATCO bill would have it do, that we've not just immediately taken all those substances off the table for research. Because if we don't continue to look at all the possibilities for all kinds of treatments, we may not know what we're missing, and we may have some value in that. Will you agree to work with me on that and others to get this language right so that we can do the research while trying to give you the power to get the nasty stuff off the streets that we don't want our kids using, but knowing that sometimes a little poison can be a medicine?
Sir, I appreciate your concern about research, and it is my concern too, and I will be more than happy to work with you regarding research. If we can streamline the process, if we can get the right people to do the right research. What I want is not just the research. I want your folks and your legal team to help our legal team come up with language that allows us to do both, to make it, you know, improper to have it on the streets, but still to allow our research universities and our folks and our doctors and our medical community who are doing research to look for those miracle cures, even if one of those may have some component that's a fentanyl derivative. Sir, I'll be more than happy to work with you
on getting that language down.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. Also, Dr. Beardsley's written testimony mentions a policy change made a few years ago that now requires a researcher to have separate controlled substance registrations for each building that they conduct research in. So he goes through his testimony. He says, you know, I used to have one person who could be in charge of it. Now I've got to have 20 people, and some of those people have to have 4 different registrations because they work in 4 different buildings. And he's at MCV, the Medical College of Virginia, VCU's medical school, and it's in downtown Richmond, and they do stuff in lots of different buildings, 4 for research apparently. And I'm just wondering why that policy change was made, and if we couldn't change it back.
Sir,
You've been here a month and a half, and you don't know the answer to that one. Can you research that and get it for me?
I want to find the answer for you. I'm sitting here, and I want to find the answer for you, and I definitely want to work with you regarding this because I believe research is very important.
Yep. And I understand that's a reasonable answer in light of the fact you've been there 6 weeks. Have you all released any updated regulations or guidance to pharmacists or other health professionals and/or patients regarding the implementation of Section 702 of CARA, which allows prescribers and patients to request a partial fill of Schedule II controlled substances? And if yes, where can that information be found? And if not, why?
Sir, I believe that is still in my regulation department, still being drafted, and we're trying to get that language right, but it's definitely part of the CARA bill, and we're definitely working on it.
Well, and I would hope that, and I appreciate that y'all worked hard to get the fentanyls rescheduled or scheduled in 2 months. But this would cut down on the supply out there on the street, and would really appreciate if your department that handles that could get that done expeditiously. With that, I have to yield back because my time is up, and I thank you muchly.
Sure, thanks, gentlemen.